that I'm using really for a lot of Lent this year is a book by Joan Chittister called In the Heart of the Temple, My Spiritual Vision for Today's World. Most of the topics that you'll hear for the next 5-6 weeks I've derived from this. She's just a wonderful, wonderful writer. This particular chapter is about discipleship. The problem with Christian discipleship is that instead of simply requiring a kind of academic or ascetic exercise, the implication of most kinds of discipleship, Christian discipleship requires a kind of living that is sure eventually to tumble a person from the banquet tables of prestigious boards and the reviewing stands of presidents and the processions of ecclesiastical knighthood to the most suspect margins of both church and society. Christian discipleship is about living in this world the way that Christ lived in his, touching levers, raising donkeys from ditches on Sabbath days, questioning the unquestionable, and consorting with women. Discipleship implies a commitment to be now, in our own world, what Christ was for his, healer and prophet, voice and heart, call and sign of the God whose design for this world is justice and love.
Today's reading is from Mark chapter 2. Jesus went out again and walked along the lake shore, but people kept coming to him in crowds to listen to his teachings. As he passed by, Jesus saw Levi ben Alphaeus sitting in the tax office. Jesus said, "Follow me." And Levi got up and followed him. While Jesus was reclining to eat in Levi's house, many other tax collectors and notorious sinners joined him and the disciples at dinner. There were many people following Jesus. When the religious scholars who belonged to the Pharisee sect saw that he was eating with tax collectors and sinners, they complained to the disciples, "Why does the teacher eat with these people?" Overhearing the remark, Jesus said to them, "People who are healthy don't need a doctor. Sick ones do. I have come to call sinners, not the righteous." So ends our reading.
Would you pray with me? Holy One, help us to focus this morning. Help us to let go of all of the other little things that are running through our heads, our to-do lists and our concerns and our worries, and to simply be present to one another and to you in this moment. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be filled with your wisdom and your insight. Amen. So last week, we were with Jesus in the wilderness as he was preparing for his public ministry by having to deal with the tension between the voices of the world and the voices of the Spirit, and choosing which ones he was going to listen to, choosing how he was going to be in his ministry, how he would treat people, how he would have integrity to himself and to his call, to develop a sense of consistency and stability before then, at the end of that very short little passage in Mark last week, he went back out into the civilized world and started to preach the good news of God. Right after that passage in Mark, we have Jesus walking by the Sea of Galilee, and he sees Simon and Andrew, who are brothers, and they're out fishing. And he says, "Hey guys, come follow me. And they do. And he walks a little further down the Sea of Galilee and he sees the brothers James and John out fishing. Apparently he's got a thing for brothers and fishermen. He says, hey guys, come on, follow me. And they do. And then we have 5 stories, one after the other, of Jesus healing people. First, he casts a quote-unquote unclean spirit out of someone. So perhaps someone who's mentally ill in that time. And then he heals Simon's mother-in-law of a fever. Then we have a story of him having many people who are ill and have issues brought to him, and he heals them. And then he heals somebody with leprosy, and then he heals a paralytic and makes them able to walk again. So we have these 5 healing stories, and then all of a sudden Jesus is back by the lake. And we're with this story with Levi. And he's walking by the lake, but he happens to see Levi, the tax collector. And he says, hey, Levi, follow me. Now, how many of you understand, or maybe I should say, is there anybody here who doesn't understand how taxes were collected in that day and age? Y'all know how they were taxed? Well, I'm going to tell you anyways. So if you were a tax collector, Gabby, say you were a tax collector. Rome would say, hey, I'm going to hire you as a tax collector. I want you every month to pay me $100. You go out and collect taxes from everybody, but you're required to give me $100 every month. And you go, okay, cool. And then you go out and you go, Marilyn, give me $50. Diane, give me $50. Clarice, give me $50. Judy, give me $50. Now you've got $200, right? And you go, hey, this is awesome. I only have to give Rome $100, and I get to keep everything else. And that's why the tax collectors were not liked very much back then, because they pretty much just raped the public and just took in all kinds of money that they kept for themselves and then gave whatever Rome asked them for. So, whenever you hear tax collectors, it's sort of with the boo and hiss in the background, right? So the next, right after he calls Levi and says, hey, Levi, follow him, which he does. They end up at Levi's house, which was probably a very nice house, given that he was a tax collector. And Jesus is reclining at the table. Remember, they didn't have tables like this. They're like kind of on the floor, lounging around, having food. And there's all of these lowlifes. There's a good word for it. Lowlifes having dinner with them. The tax collectors, boo hiss. And my translation said notorious sinners. And then there's at least, so they were notorious lowlife. At least one Pharisee, you know, the upright, religious, you get the picture. And that Pharisee looks around, he's thinking, you know, this guy says he's a teacher. And he's a Jewish teacher. And he's supposed to be following all the Jewish laws. He turns to one of Jesus' disciples, Simon or Andrew or James or John, and says, what is the teacher doing eating with all of these lowlife? And Jesus overhears him. And Jesus says, well, you know, people who are healthy don't need a doctor. Just the sick do. He said, I didn't come to call the righteous. I came to call sinners. Okay, so I can take this comment one of two ways. Either he was implying that the Pharisee was healthy, which is a stretch for me, and that the Pharisee could go on home because he wasn't needed there. You don't need a doctor, you don't need me. Or it was sort of a tongue-in-cheek that said, if you consider yourself to be healthy and righteous, there's nothing I can do for you. Because you already figured you've got it all figured out. And so I've come to all of these people who are willing to learn and willing to listen and have an open mind. And you call them sinners, but I see them as people. So regardless of how you want to take that statement, I find it fascinating that in the book of Mark, we've just had 5 stories of Jesus healing people. And then he uses the metaphor of himself as a doctor. The people sitting at the dinner aren't necessarily in need of the physical healing like he had just done in those stories. They're in need of an emotional, spiritual healing. These are folks who've kind of gone astray in life. They've made bad decisions. Their attitudes and their behaviors and the way they treat others is not a healthy way of being. They've lost themselves. They've lost their way. And yet that's a part of the healing that Jesus is talking about. So once there was a teacher who heard about an old monastic who was known for his piercing spiritual questions. And so this old teacher traveled a long ways to see this old monastic guy. And he got there and he said, "Holy One, give me a question that will renew my soul." And the old monastic said, okay. Your question is, what do they want? The teacher thought, He took that question and he pondered over this question for a couple of days, and at the end of those couple of days, all he was depressed and frustrated. And so he went back to the old monastic and he said, "You know, when I came here, I was tired and depressed and dry. And I asked you to give me a question to renew my soul. I didn't come here to talk about my ministry. I came here to talk about my spiritual life." And the old monastic said, oh, I see. I understand. You're right. Your question is not, what do they want? Your question is, what do they really want? So I think about Jesus. If somebody were to pose that question of Jesus, what do they really want? What do the people really want? What do the disciples really want? What was he teaching? You know, as Joan Chittister talks about discipleship, she says, oftentimes discipleship is seen as, following an academic or an ascetic sort of path, learning or giving something up to follow whatever that person or path is. And yet that's not how I see Jesus. Oftentimes discipleship, which means, not just to be a student of someone else, but it means to follow them, to try and emulate them. Being a disciple has come to mean in the churches to be obedient to certain things. But I'm thinking, if I ask Jesus, what do they really want? He's not going to say, they really want creeds, and they really want rules, and they really want doctrine, and they really want prayer that they have to say whenever they have to ask forgiveness. And I don't remember any of that. I don't remember Jesus ever saying, memorize some Bible texts for me, and come back tomorrow and tell me what they were. Memorize the 10 Commandments. Or the 613 laws that we're all supposed to be following. Those are the important things for you to be doing as a disciple of mine. Anybody remember those? I don't remember those. I don't think discipleship is about obedience to any of those things, to religious traditions or laws or even being here on Sunday morning. God bless you all for being here. It's not what it's about. If I look at that first little part of Mark, it says to me that being a disciple is about learning to heal. It's about being a healing presence in the world. story about the Buddha. One day, the Buddha's life was threatened. There was a bandit who was going to kill him. And the Buddha said, oh, wait. Before you do that, would you please honor my last wish? Would you cut that branch off that tree? The man said, sure, fine, I'll cut the branch off the tree. And he cuts the branch off, and he hands it to the Buddha. He says, here you go, for all the good it's going to do you now. And the Buddha said, correct. Then would you put that branch back on the tree? And the bandit says, are you insane? Like anybody could do that. And the Buddha says, to the contrary, you are the one who is insane. Because you believe that you are mighty, because you can wound and destroy. Truly, those who are mighty are the ones who use their strength to create and to heal. And it seems to me that Jesus was sometimes more than anything else a healing presence in the world. Now, what does that look like? How does that manifest itself? And then if we're called to be that, if we're called to be disciples, those who want to emulate, to follow Jesus, what does it look like for us to be a healing presence in the world? This is your question of the day. What does it look like? To be kind. What else? Compassionate. The whole list from last week. Okay, what was it? There's your. How many remember? There was a lot. What else? Try to unite people. Healing presence, Connie.
Feeding the hungry.
Feeding the hungry. What else? Beth.
Trying to have empathy with others.
Have empathy. Sure. What else? Being humble. Do we close our doors, keep people out? No, we let people in. We're accepting, right? How about when somebody's hurting, what do we do? We listen, we comfort, we hold, we cry with. How about when we screw up, what do? We apologize. And when somebody else screws up, what do? We forgive, we don't judge. All of those sorts of things. To be generous, to be kind, to be loving. And it's not always easy. Which I think is why we come back here once a week. Because we all know that it's not easy to live the way that perhaps we really want in our souls to be living. And so maybe this is a shot in the arm, somebody to help call us to accountability for how we're being, or to encourage us to just be better, to take the next best step. And when you screw up, to say, okay, you screwed up, let's take the next best step from here. But to continue to try to be a healing presence for ourselves, which means sometimes we have to get help for ourselves, for one another and our relationships, for our systems. Justice is part of healing. And for our world, our environment that needs to be healed. We all have a piece in that creating and that healing.